What's good, y'all? It's your boy Ross back at again with another video. So, a lot of you guys checked out my video talking about what The Rock said on the Pat McAfee show, and I saw a lot of comments. Certain people giving a lot of the blame to The Rock, certain people giving blame to Triple H, and certain people giving blame to TKO. And I wanted to kind of create this video to see who really deserves most of the blame for how things transpired for the main event of WrestleMania 41 Night 2 involving Cody Rhodes and John Cena. Now, The Rock did make it very apparent that Ari Emanuel, he is the CEO and executive chairman of TKO, personally hit him up to get The Rock involved in some capacity so they can sell more tickets for the Elimination Chamber. And this is kind of the motto that TKO has. And I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but ever since WWE was purchased by Endeavor and, the joint with TKO and the whole UFC deal, they have done things to make the most money possible. And I think they came in at the right moment because this is when WWE, the product, was really hot. And it was, I guess you can say, on the upward trend in like social media and people being excited about the product since Triple H took over. So they came in at the right point, at the right time. And all they started to do was simply just start adding more money to it, or trying to get the most money out of it by, reaching out to different sponsors and advertisers and doing everything that they were essentially doing in UFC, but bringing it over to WWE. Once, if you guys remember this, and I wanted to bring this up, once Vince McMahon, the allegations got out about him, and he was trying to, he sold the company, he was wanting to be on the board and stuff like that. Once those allegations got out, and Slim Jim, if you guys remember, Slim Jim had pulled out of, I don't know if it was SummerSlam at the time, or I forgot what PLE it was. Comment down below. I'm sure you guys remember. It was a PLE that was about to happen. I think it was SummerSlam, and Slim Jim pulled out of it. They pulled out once those allegations came to the forefront, and Vince was still involved in the company. They pulled out. They threatened to pull out, or I think they actually did. And that's when there was a meeting held, and boys had voted Vince to go ahead and leave. Once he was gone, Slim Jim came back into the mix, and then they went forward with everything that they planned on doing. The reason why that's important, and the reason why I bring that up, is for the simple fact that if you really look at it and break it down, this was a situation of TKO is going to do whatever they can to make the most money possible, to get the most sponsors, and to get the most deals. So if they're willing to kick out Vince, who they just got the company from, so they don't lose Slim Jim, what else are they willing to do? That's when they started adding advertisers on the ring mat and on the turnbuckles. And now you start to see certain matches sponsored by different advertisers. And then you start to see the spike in ticket sales. You start to see the spike in that, and how they're charging crazy amount of money to show up to these PLEs. I think Randy Orton met a fan yesterday, and they posted on social media how the tickets they ended up paying for like both nights ended up being like $30,000. And even Randy was like, that's embarrassing. That's insane. Whether we like Vince or not, there was never a thing he wanted to do at WrestleMania to charge people crazy amount of money. But TKO, they're trying to capitalize off the popularity of WWE. And this is why I say TKO definitely deserves some fault in how all this played out, because it was never really about the fans. And a lot of companies are like that. They just do it. They do a better job at hiding it. It was never about the fans, essentially. It was about how much money can we make as quick as possible, because we're not making enough money as fast as we thought we were. And that's when you really break it down, they They had a projection of what Elimination Chamber ticket prices or ticket sales was going to be. They weren't reaching it. So in their mind, they're in panic control. Well, they're panicking right now, and they're in damage control essentially, even though it wasn't that much damage being done, in my opinion. I think they were selling a decent amount. There are reports saying at that time it was like 27,000 tickets sold. And I'm sure they were still pretty expensive, but they wanted more, quicker. So Ari Emanuel, who's the, part of TKO, he's the executive chairman. He hits up The Rock, who's also on the board for TKO. He's like, hey, man, can you get involved in this? Now, here's where The Rock takes some fault in this, too. The Rock takes some fault in this too because he agreed to this. Even though that's part of his job, essentially, to make the company as much money, it creates a conflict of interest because you are trying to make the company as much money at the cost of telling a story that you'll never complete, essentially. And you're leading the fans to this idea of, oh, WrestleMania is going to be, so crazy because now John Cena has a line with The Rock. Oh, man, that's going to be crazy. I got to go to WrestleMania now. Think about this. This is even more than just Elimination Chamber. This is now, I got to pull up to WrestleMania because, The Rock is involved in this story. Oh, this is going to be crazy. And guess what? People are going to spend or try to spend as much money to not only see John Cena's last WrestleMania match, to see this John Cena heel turn, now to see what his implications with The Rock, whether they're going to do together. Like, people are now invested in the story. So I can imagine how many people were excited to actually go to WrestleMania to potentially see The Rock involved in another big storyline, because we already got it last year. The people expectations were set super high. Did he have to be involved in this? No. He didn't have to. He could have deferred to Triple H. Like, hey, I think we should probably let Triple H kind of handle this, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be there. And for someone to say, oh, well, I didn't want to get too involved in the story, you got super involved in the story as soon as you asked for Cody's soul, and then you did the whole throat slit as John Cena packed up Cody. You can't say, I don't want to get too involved. That happens. And then guess what? All right, guys, see you guys later. Good luck at WrestleMania. Make us some money. That's what happened. So I do think he takes some fault in that. I get it. His job is to make TKO as much money, but also it costs the story to make sense and the people to get that satisfaction that they were hoping for. Yes, you can't please everybody, but I think when you, as big of a name as you are, as a big of a draw as you are, I think you have an obligation to at least, give the fans something of what they want. Hell, he did it last year and they had to change plans. He could have did some vignettes like he did, or little promos he did on Instagram. He could have did all of that, at least something, but he didn't. He just did his part, what they asked him to do, which I understand that he's a company guy now, so I get that. But I think there's a way you could have did that. I think him being involved in a situation like this, I do think he could have deferred or came up with another idea. If I know I'm not going to be there, whether I'm on a board or not, it just doesn't make sense from a standpoint, a television standpoint, to do this. And I do think that somebody probably told him, hey, you may want to try to do damage control on the Pat McAfee show, because they're cooking them. And once again, at the end of the day, I get it. It's a business. But once you start doing that to your fans, giving them false hope, giving them this false sense of excitement to something, and then you under-deliver and you were never going to deliver, that's when you start losing the people. And I don't think they understand that you can lose fans, especially if you're charging them ridiculous amount of money and they just don't feel satisfied in what they got in the product. And the last person that does deserve blame in this is Triple H. Triple H definitely deserves some part of the blame, even though he is just someone that is head of creative. At the end of the day, at some point, you can sit up here and say, oh, the fans need to just, watch the product for what it was. It seemed like he was doing damage control all of last week because he probably knew maybe this ending is not going to be something that the fans truly like. And that's what happened. But to sit up there and say the fans should just, just turn their brains off and watch something that doesn't make sense. No. The criticism deserves to be there. And if you're head of creative, at some point, you got to have some type of pushback. And I get it. These guys are on the board, so, they may have a little bit more power. But he agreed to this. And, they're saying that they didn't really have any real plans or ideas of what they really wanted to do at WrestleMania, which I still kind of find it hard to believe. I don't know about that. It just doesn't make sense to bring out The Rock as this, this is gonna be the emergency button, the red button. We gotta press this button. When it's like the whole purpose that TKO is even involved in this whole situation with WWE, obviously Vince being the person to sell the company, but it all comes down to how popular the company had gotten. And you want to know the biggest factor why the company got popular is because of Triple H's booking. Has it been perfect? Has it been always on point? No. But when things are good, they're great. And when we've seen storylines play out and we get some great build and satisfactory endings to certain things, it's one of those things where it's like, all right, cool. Fans are getting more invested. TKO is going to want to get involved in this because they're making a lot of fucking money. But at some point, you got to kind of let your guy do their job. But at the same time, I do feel like the whole Triple H, doubling down on saying fans need to just let things play out and just watch it for what it is, that's a cop-out. And also, I don't know if he has the power to sit up there and say, hey, I think we need to do this way because the way that y'all trying to get this to get done, selling a couple tickets at Elimination Chamber only to screw over the fans in enjoyment of a product, I don't know if that's going to be the best route long term. Triple H does have to take some fault in this because, he obviously has signed and agreed to it. We don't know how much pushback there was. But, and then you got to also take in consideration The Rock was done. So if The Rock was done with this and what we got at the end where Travis Scott comes out there, that falls on Triple H. That ending doesn't even, it feels lackluster because if Triple H was like, you know what, let's bring Travis Scott into the mix, that automatically creates even more of if Travis Scott's out there, he was already with The Rock, you know what, guess what, maybe The Rock's about to come out next. We're already getting it hyped up. You already set it up and then nothing happens. You're just like, wait, what? What are we doing here? Like, why would he be out there? Why is Travis Scott one of the biggest reasons why John Cena won his 17th world title? What? I don't know. It just didn't come off. It came off rushed. Honestly, it came off rushed. It came off like this is what we got, and if that's the best they could come up with The Rock not being there, it all sucks. It all just makes everything worse in a sense, even though they were trying to do as much as they possibly could to make the best out of the situation. So, in my opinion, I think TKO takes the most blame because they are the ones who essentially hit up The Rock to get this ball rolling with this nonsense story. The Rock takes the blame because, yes, he's doing his job and doing his part for TKO, but I do feel like at some point you got to be like, well, if I'm not going to be there, I don't need to be there. I don't need to be involved in this story. I know y'all trying to make as much money as possible, and I think there's another way I can do it because, or if you are going to be somewhat involved, if you, at some point, that you could have added a little bit of more storytelling online with the social media aspect. If you're going to do it, even if you can't be truly involved at WrestleMania, something, but we didn't get that. Or he could have deferred to to Triple H or came up with some other idea. I don't know. And then Triple H does take some fault in it because at the end of the day, he went along with it. There was nothing really changed and they didn't, it seems as if what The Rock had said, that was the plan they were going with, and they just brought in Travis Scott to get that receipt. I don't know, man. I think all three of these individuals and parties take fault in this. You know, I know The Rock is getting a lot of shit for it because he's the person that's speaking about it. But TKO and Triple H, I do take some fault. That I do think they deserve some fault in this entire situation. It's just unfortunate. And, you know, we'll see where things go in the future. But I stand by this. I don't think TKO should be heavily invested in storylines to sell tickets. No. Leave that to Triple H. Leave that to the writers. That's their fucking job. Let them do what they need to do to sell as many tickets possible. You guys are making a lot of fucking money. I don't think y'all hurting for money. I think The Rock needs to take a step back in a sense when it comes to storylines. If you're not going to be involved long term, please take a step back, because all those post-show interviews talking about, oh, this is the long game, we've been planning this, and then to come out and be like, well, they kind of just needed my help. I just did this and then I dipped. No, we don't need that. And Triple H, he has to take a little bit more control over his shows. And I don't know how he can do that, but he has to, because he's part of the reason why they're in this boom period. So you kind of have to do something and let it be known, hey, kind of let trust me to do what I need to do and steer the ship. And that's easier said than done, because once again, we're on the outside. We're fans. We don't really know the inner workings and how certain people may say and do things and want things done a certain way because they have a higher position in the company. So this is all just speculation, all something that I was thinking about, you know, who really takes the most blame in this. And in my opinion, TKO takes a lot of the blame, but everybody else, like The Rock and Triple H, they take some fault in this too. So comment down below. Let me know, who do y'all feel like is the most to blame for how things transpired at WrestleMania 41? TKO, the people involved in TKO, The Rock, or Triple H, or all three of these guys, or all three of these entities and stuff. Y'all let me know down below. I appreciate all love, support. Road to 150K. Appreciate y'all kicking with me. See you on the next one. Peace.